Just thinking to myself the other day, like, I was setting this up and had everything looking this way, like, the shit we were doing back in the past. Remember, like, going through, like, certain topics, putting together, like, presentations,
I
going,
know,
like, the ghosts or
I do the ghost
UFOs
one,
and stuff
yeah.
like that. I mean, that's what we've got here as well. You've got the Calvine one up there on your shelf as well, right behind your head.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, a few legacy items from the old days as well.
Yeah, no, it's got a completely different vibe now, I think.
It does, yeah.
Which is better. It needed the reboot, I think. It was a bit too clinical before.
Yeah, oh man, it was like a dentist's office or something like that, man.
It was, yeah.
Yeah,
Now it
pure
actually
white
feels
just behind you. So yeah, it's got a nice like homely vibe to it now.
100%.
Yeah. I gotta say, I'll make the comment before anyone else on chat does. You are looking bronzed, my friend.
I know, dude.
More bronze than those little statues up on the shelf there.
Yeah, legit. Would, but yeah, it's because I've been in Europe, dude.
Yeah.
So I look sick now.
How was it?
I look less than sick. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Where'd you go?
I went to Italy. I went to Greece. Then just parts around Italy. But yeah, man, the European culture is so different to Western culture. I'm kind of like envious of it because they don't like rush. They don't rush around. They just chill. They get up. They have a coffee. They relax, and then I'm going to work now. They work for like, I don't know, half the day. They get to about 12. They don't work for 3 hours, but then they go back really late at night. That's the only part I don't like about it. But it's way more relaxed though, right? Whereas in Australia, it's like get up as early as you can, fit everything in, like short lunch break, go home, and then you just feel exhausted at the end of the day, and you don't really want to do anything. No one wants to stay out. That's
a shame as well, 'cause it's like 5 of your 7 days a week that you spend like that as well. It's a lot of your time. That's like 70% or so of your life that you're doing. And I know people in my industry as well will like cycle to work, so they'll probably leave home at like 5:30. They'll cycle in for 45 minutes, work for like 10 hours, and cycle home. And you think to yourself, you go like, well, if you're doing that all the time, and that's like your entire life for what, 40 to 50 years, so you can enjoy what, last 20 when your body's starting to fail you as well, it doesn't seem right. It seems like we're not doing it right, I don't think.
Yeah, it seems like they've definitely figured out how to enjoy life a bit more, where Western culture seems to just be grind yourself to the bone and try and enjoy your later years, which is, I don't think is a good idea, because you want to enjoy stuff while you're young. And I get like that's when you have the most energy to get the most work done, but that's a very work-based focus of your life, where I think that they have a better balance of like you can work, but you still need to enjoy things too.
Yeah, I do feel that me and you might just come at this from like the way that we are as people as well, but for most people, if they're not working, I don't think they'll really take advantage or use that time any better. Then most people, when they have a day off and they'll do anything, they literally just watch TV. They'll consume, like, they'll do anything they can to make the time go as fast as possible. So if you complain that work feels like it takes too long, why are you doing things in your time off that make it absolutely zip right past? Do you know what I mean? There's the sort of mindlessness stuff that people mostly spend their time off doing. For me, it feels like, you know, you could maximize your time off if you're doing things that actually engage you and keep you, like, you know, interested and your attention. But instead, all we really do when we have any time off, and I don't know if that's because our work is too stressful, everyone needs to decompress, but all we do when we have time off is that we switch off. I don't know if that's the right way to play it either.
I think you have to switch off though, because you've just been going balls to the wall all day. It's just like, if you think about it, at work, it's just like optimize how much you can get done. So then when you get home, it all sort of hits you at once, where you're like, I've been going hard all day. I just need to just stop for a sec. And
it's a shame. Yeah. I get it. That's probably fair enough as well. But it's just a shame to think that like that's probably exacerbating the problem. Is that when you do have time off, most of us are just trying to like recover this energy, and you don't do anything, or you do things that just like take minimal effort. And when your brain's not engaged, time seems to fly right past. Everyone knows that when you're just sitting there scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, or you're watching YouTube or TV, man, you can lose 6 hours like it's nothing. You do those same 6 hours at work, and you're like, you can't wait for the time to go by. It's completely different. Like, time moves faster the less engaged you are. But then when we have time off, all we want to do is disengage. So you're speeding up the time off you have, and then you slow yourself down when you're at work. That just makes the whole thing feel way worse.
I think the speed up is just a natural byproduct of actually enjoying the time that you have, though. Because if you are doing something that you like doing, you sort of lose track of time, which is because you're having fun. Whereas when you're doing something that you're doing because you have to do it, not because you want to do it, obviously it's going to drag on, right?
So you reckon there's a part of that's like the enjoyment is also influencing it. So that makes it even worse. What an absolute cruel twist of fate then. That the second you start enjoying yourself, time just starts zipping right on by.
Well,
It's such a weird thing about the human condition, isn't it? That we can't like, we can never have. It's almost like this world's been made just to like test and stress us out, right?
well, in the Western culture, like I was saying, it is like that. The European culture is not the same. They're not as driven by getting shit done at work, which is why things take so long there. It's like they call it Italian time because people are just so fucking slow. Because they're not completely driven by I have to get everything done. They're like stopping at 12 o'clock for a 3-hour lunch to just go and relax and eat, and I think they even have a sleep, and then they go back later on in the night.
Love it, absolutely love it. I don't know where's that come from in terms of like culture? Because I thought to myself as well, being like in Australia, in a place that's only really existed for 300 years or so, if that, as an actual society that we have here. Is it because they have such a longer history? Is that where it gives them a bit more perspective, and it's why they can slow down like that?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of comes from Roman culture, doesn't it? It's like sort of based in the sort of Roman times. The Greeks are kind of similar to that. I don't know. They've been around for a lot longer. Perhaps just as a byproduct of living for so long, they've culturally understood what is more important.
Yeah. Whereas we're still in that phase of mentality of like trying to grow and trying to conquer and trying to expand, which is what Western civilization really has. I mean, we've been colonizing and expanding and rebuilding for so long that's like ingrained in us. Whereas I just don't. Yeah, I think you're right. I think they've been around for so long, from the Roman Empire all the way through, that there is that different perspective.
Yeah, what more do you need to do after you've built Rome?
Yeah,
you just gotta sit back and relax.
Then you take your mid-afternoon nap. I think
you have to. You gotta chill. Yeah. I feel like, and that's something that would have, because where does culture even come from? How does the culture of them working, having a 3-hour lunch, sleep, and then going back and working till 8, how does that even become a thing? It has to come over hundreds of years, probably thousands of years. So
yeah, that's a great question as well. And strange enough, like to pivot a bit, but I was watching like an interview that Matt Walsh was doing as part of that Am I Racist movie. He was talking to this guy's this black professor about it. And it was really interesting. They were talking about the differences in average SAT scores between like different groups. And as you can all expect, I think it's like Asian Americans have like a 1200 average, and then you have like, I think it was Indian Americans or Native Americans had about 750. And the thing is, it's like, well, genetically there's no difference. There's really no difference in terms of like our capacity to learn across people. You can probably account for 1 to 2% best based on genetic reasons, right? We take a big statistical group as a whole. So all of the differences are cultural, all of them. You're talking about like a 50% difference in SAT scores across groups of people purely based on culture. And if you ask yourself, like, well, where's that culture come from? Like, what is it? Well, who knows? But you say it takes a long time to form. And one of the problems I even have with like the whole equity stuff that they sort of push is like they're trying to fix the problem of culture at the end point. So you've already lived your whole life in a certain cultural environment, but then you want to fix the inequality at the end just by being like, okay, well, let's let more of this group into the university instead of this group because there's too many of this group in. It's like, no, you got to fix the culture. You can't just like fix it at the end after the culture's already.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The culture's already had its effect on the person, and then you're just going to give them the job anyway. Like, you're not fixing it.
That's actually an interesting point, yeah, because you can't expect someone to grow up in a particular culture and then be like, oh, you know what, actually, we're just going to solve whatever the issue is that is happening within a few months or within a year.
Well, this person's 24 years old. Here you go. We fixed it now. And you're like, well, you kind of haven't. And it's wild. I saw this really interesting graph as well, which was like the average score you need to get into a university split by race and group. So you have Asian male, female, or Asian female, white male, white female, all the groups. And man, like, if you are African American, you can have a 20, 30 point basis less percent score and still get into the same course that an Asian or a white man would get into. Yeah, right. So like the entry level just drops depending on what you are. So that means you get like some like Asian men and white men who have really high scores not getting into the schools they want to get into because their spot's being taken by someone who's got like a 20% lower score, but they fit a different race.
It's really interesting, actually.
And that's where you're fixing the problem of culture at the end
Yeah.
after it's already had its effect. But I don't know why. It's a crazy thing to think that just something about Asian culture is really, really good at raising, I don't know if it's raising kids or it's promoting that sort of excellence or what it is. I don't know what aspect of it is, but you can see it in the data. It's like, it's so clear that they just perform better. They've better work ethics. I don't know what it is. It's just you can see it.
I think that if you like, it's like when you're building like your character in an RPG. If you stack one stat, something else is gonna lack, though, right?
You've only got a certain amount of points to use, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not all like rosy. You can have like a really high stat in one thing, but like they've got their own issues, right? Like it's like Japan. Japan has something similar to like obviously doing well in school and stuff like that, but then also their suicide rates are just like through the roof. So you know, it's good in some ways, bad in others.
Do you reckon there's a part of that as well that might be like, you know, the culture that you're from is sort of pushing you to spend those ability points, as we just talked about? Like, I think that's a great way to think about it. The ability points that form your character in an RPG, and the culture that you come from. Do you reckon that's the simple answer as there is? It's just like your culture is the collective push for you to spend those ability points in a certain way. Subconsciously, you don't even realize it. You just grow up in the culture, and the things that you should prioritize become evident to you based on what everyone else around you is doing. So it might be as simple as like I see, so I do.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what it is. It's like the culture of Australians' tall poppy syndrome. Like, you see it everywhere, man. People are always trying to rip other people down, and it's a very inherently Australian thing to do.
Bit of English. There's a bit of English to it.
There is a
comes
bit of
from
English
England,
to
I
that,
think,
right?
yeah.
It's like a derivative of English culture, because obviously Australians we don't even have our own culture really, unless you're like a First Nations people. They have their own culture, but like colonized Australians, their culture or our culture is inherently British. We don't actually have an Australian culture really. If you think about it, what is an Australian cuisine?
Shrimp on the barbie, maybe? I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
Australian cuisine. Like the closest thing to an Australian cuisine is passed down from an English background. There's no one Australian dish that you could name that isn't inherently English.
Yeah, it's a weird country to be in, man. It's so strange because there is no like history of our people. Everyone who's here, like me and you both, our families come from like migration. Like,
That's right. Yeah.
The most native, like in terms of Western native you can be in Australia is like what, 4 generations now, 5 perhaps.
Probably.
If you can date your ancestry back to the colonizers.
Yeah.
It's a wild thing to be in, and so we probably just took the British, like the way we spend our ability points in Australia really has that sort of British vibe to it, I'd say.
It does. It's completely British. But it's weird because we've put our own Australian spin on it. So we're not
we definitely sink a lot more piss. I think that's definitely.
Well, the English sink a lot of piss too.
That's true.
They do sink a lot of alcohol. But I don't know. I don't even know how I got onto this. But yeah, like, culturally, we are sort of derived from the British. We are now Australian. But yeah, this whole like tall poppy syndrome, I feel like it's super related to Australian culture. Obviously, it happens in other countries, but in different ways. So I think that the Italians, they have a different way. It's not tall poppy syndrome, but they're very critical of other people, but in a more social way. Like they are happy to say their thoughts and feelings directly to the person in person.
Yeah.
Where I feel like a lot of Australian culture likes to visually see people and then pull them down, not directly, like from a distance to some extent. But the Italian culture, that makes sense though, because everyone they're so like social together. Where I don't think Australians are as connected as the Italians or the Greeks.
Yeah, and I think that probably comes from the fact of how most of us got here as well. That we don't have that deep line connection. You know, you don't have, I'd say, generations of people who lived in the same area. You don't have those family names that carry this certain weight to it because, they've been around the community for so long. We just don't have any of that here. Most of the time, it's like you get 10 random Australians together. You know this. We've played football for quite a while. You pick 10 random people out. Each of them comes from a different part of the world. So it's a weird thing. The only thing that really unifies us as a whole is that we all come from different places. And it's a strange thing to have unifying you. It's a weird thing. It's like it's the melting pot theory, but like it's not really been tried anywhere before to this extent.
It's a very strange dynamic.
There's never been a slab of land across the globe where you've gone, all right, let's start a new country here. Everyone just pour in, like all around the world, pour in and just make it work.
Yeah.
And the fact that we started from convicts that were like sent out from the United Kingdom at the time.
Yeah, we're literally a country built on degenerates. Yeah. That's
we're
crazy.
A prison that turned into a nation.
Yeah.
It's such a strange place to me. I don't think people stop to think about it. And the way we talked about it at the start and how we got into it is that, like, if where you're born, and the family you're born into, and all the rest of these things, like, I love that concept of everyone gets the same amount of ability points, and it's your culture or your family that determine where you spend them before you're even a conscious human being. So to some extent, like, you're in control of some of those points. Maybe you spend most of them by the time you're 15, and you get a couple that you get to put into yourself. But like most of us are spent before you even realize. And in a country like Australia, I don't think the culture as a nation is pushing people that much. Whereas Italy, I think it does. I think culture gets a much bigger attribution to those points. For us, it's like there's no interconnected culture, so it all depends on what your family's like or what country you've come from.
That's actually a really good point there. And g'day, Tug, and thank you very much, brother, for tuning in. We upgraded everything, brother. It's fully. This is our new setup. So we spent a bit of time. We went back to the lab.
Back to the lab again.
We're back to the lab again, and just fixed everything up. It looked a little bit too clinical before, I thought. So we thought we'd get to the lab and change it up. So this is the reboot finally. So I hope you're doing well, man. Haven't seen you for a long time, and we haven't been live for a long time as well.
This took a surprisingly long amount of time to put together. I remember. When we thought about doing it, I'm like, this will be easy. Take a weekend. It did not just take a weekend, unfortunately.
It took so long. There was so much to do. But, I like that you talked there about the cultural push from Italy because they actually have a distinguished culture. Australians do not have a singular distinguished culture.
Except for the fact that it's interconnected. That's the only thing we have.
We're all interconnected.
Which is a weird one.
Which is an interesting subculture in its own right because we're a culture of separate cultures that have blended together. But you're right. It's almost more free-forming in where you would put your skill points because it's all based on your background, so my Italian culture, so I have that, and then who you grew up with in your school in Australia, you get influenced by all these different cultures and the people that you become friends with.
And
so it gives you
just spending these points without realizing.
It gives you a really unique personality though, because Australians have such a blend of so many different cultures based in one. It's really interesting.
And one thing I would say that like our Australian culture does promote and push towards is that sort of acceptance of others and other ideas, because you have to have that to live here. You can't be like that intolerant. You can't be that closed off or that singular-minded and the type of people you want around you, because you won't get that. There's not a single community you can go to in Australia and not have 10, 15 plus different nationalities always surrounding you at any given time. Like you can't have that sort of one-track mind that places like Poland has that sort of mentality. I know Italy does as well. And theirs comes from all those European wars that they had as well. That's how you form that sort of us versus them mentality. Like Polish people versus the rest. That's how they have that mentality in Poland. We don't have that here. Because you can't. Like, if you want to define Australian yourself, what do you define it as? Without picking 10 other nations. At least.
It's true.
Is it the only people that come from the UK? Well, they're still not from here originally. Like 3 countries in the UK as well. Is it European? Is it German? Is it Spanish? You know what I mean? There's just so much.
I think that's why, it's so interesting when people here want to join like One Nation and shit like that, and it's like, oh yeah, we don't want to let other people in, but it's like I don't even think you realize how much of Australia is built on separate cultures, and I don't know, like Pauline Hanson seems to have this thing where like it's this weird dichotomy because you need enough immigration to have stuff like you and I. Obviously, if it wasn't for immigration, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be Australians, and Australia based off of all the immigrants, wouldn't have the culture that it has. But then there's also a limit to how much immigration you want because it's diluting the Australian way. So it's okay to have separate cultures in Australia, but you have to adopt the Australian way of life.
Yeah.
But you can't come to Australia and then push your culture onto the Australian way of life.
Yeah. You can't try to outsize your culture's effect on what is already like an interwoven connection with other cultures. You can't have yours be like unchanged, but ask everyone else's to change for you. So that's the thing that gets me as well. It's meant to be like, it's give and take, right? You enter the patchwork of what it is to be Australian, all the cultures mixed together, but then you also got to let what being Australian is enter you as well.
Exactly.
But I don't think they do that. There's a lot of those places that don't do that. And I think for them, it's a lot of those Middle Eastern countries, it's more from the history of what it's been like for them in the Middle East. That's where that comes from. There a lot of wars, a lot of like invasions, a lot of opposing forces. They've had to have that. They've adopted that mentality. So when they come to a place like Australia, it's like, well, they're not ready yet to, you know, to adopt the Australian way of life when they've come from a culture that's been for generations and generations firm-fisted around how they need to live. It's really hard for them to come over and just like let that go when it's been built into you for generations.
Like assimilating into the
Yeah.
Australian way of life.
Into Western civilization when you've so firmly been in a place that's been anti that for a very, very long time. I'd say since at least like the early 1900s.
Yeah, it's interesting because you'd think that if you... Because like a lot of immigration comes from... I know it did for my family, is leaving for a better life. So to some extent, you're leaving behind some of the... You're not leaving behind the culture, but you're leaving behind some of the ways of life to go to Australia for a better way of life. So that's the part I don't understand is coming to Australia, but then trying to force or wanting that way of life pushed in Australia. That's what I don't get. It's like, didn't you leave for that? Like,
no, I agree 100%. I have the same thing with like my family. We came here as like wartime refugees, and I don't speak for my parents, but like they do not like the mentality that led to the conflict in our home country. They don't want to ever see that here. So they come to Australia, they appreciate Australia for what it is because it wasn't what we left. And yeah, some of these places, they come from really bad scenarios, and all they want to do is change Australia to mimic where they came from.
yeah.
It's like, no, I'm sorry, but your ideas didn't work. Like, you tried them in your home country, and they clearly didn't work. It led to such a bad scenario that you and your family came here. And then you come here and you go, oh, I want to try those ideas here again. And you've got to have that, that awareness that maybe the ideas back home led to the bad situation you were in. So don't try to make those ideas happen here. That seems pretty logical.
I think it's hard to let go of the things that you've always grown up with, though, right? Like, obviously coming from, say, if you lived in Italy for 25 years of your life, it's very difficult to let go of some of the things that have been ingrained in you as you grow up. So there's probably some aspect of it like that. And you know what's interesting is that some of the cultures like Italy, like Italian culture, I think would be better here if people slowed down. And it's, one of the things that they do there is they'll just walk around to someone's house and just stop and have a coffee. I just find that so strange, but like they would do that. We would just be sitting down at my auntie's house, and people would just like, because she's got a door and the street's right there, they would just yell out like, hey, what's going on? And then be like, they'd come around with sweets and we'd just be having coffee, and it would happen like throughout the day. I just find that so strange because that would never happen here. Like, no one just rocks up at your house unless you pre-plan it, right?
Yeah.
You don't just drive to someone's house anymore.
Everyone's working as well. That's the thing.
During the week, everyone's at work.
Everyone's at work, yeah. Yeah, it's a strange one. But I would say that you said before as well about like, how many people we let in as well. There's a strange, like, interesting fact I learned the other day as well, is that for the last, I think since COVID, because COVID there was a stop in like immigration and all the rest of the stuff, but I think for the last like 5 or 6 years, we've let in more people into Australia than we've built new homes consistently. It's been let in about 800, 900,000, only 500,000 homes constructed. So we've been running at a deficit of about 300,000 livable residences for people we're letting in. That to me seems like the most glaring mismanagement of government you could possibly have. How can you bring more people in and not even have a place for them to sleep? Doesn't that seem absolutely crazy?
Yeah, you know what's interesting is this whole thing about, how they do like first home buyers grant, right? Or during COVID, they said we're upping the first home buyers grant, blah blah blah. So you think, oh, that's a great thing. The government's doing a great job, right? Which in theory makes sense. But then what happens is when they up the first home buyers grant, the builders just up how much they're charging you, and it happens
Lockstep.
Lockstep. It goes, okay, extra extra $20,000 for the first home buyer. The builders go, oh yeah, because of inflation, everything is $20,000 more expensive. So essentially what happens is they start pushing the inflation even higher, and the house prices go up because you're spending more now. You're not actually getting any savings, so it's not helping
Louis,
anyone out.
You've just touched on the most simple, basic economic principle that there is. It's supply and demand. Right? You set your prices based on what people can afford. That's it. That's just business. You have to do that. That's how you manage clearance rates, all the rest of that stuff. If the government comes in and increases the purchasing power of people, the buyer, the demand by 100,000, the supply will increase its prices by the exact same amount. That is always the case. And that's the worst thing about these government interventions that seem so well-intentioned, but are so obviously flawed. Like basic economic principles flawed. And what's worse is the 100,000 that you talked about didn't pop up out of nowhere. That's tax dollars. So they've siphoned a little bit of money off everyone and gave it to the builders, gave it to the construction companies, gave it to the sellers, the developers. And I think that's why they do that. That's why they did the first home buyer grant. I think that was lobbied for heavily by developers, by, real estate investors, because they knew as soon as this grant goes through, we can increase our prices and still clear the same amount of homes. And it's that I was actually telling you the other day that story about colonial Britain.
Yes.
See, what you just touched on there is exactly the same as that story. So to all those listening, it's a really interesting story that I learned a few weeks ago. But basically, when India was under British rule, colonial rule, in New Delhi, they had a real bad problem with cobras and cobra attacks. So all the townspeople, villages were being attacked by cobras. So the British monarchy set a bounty for every dead cobra that people would bring them. So the first few years of the implementation of this bounty, it was working. People were bringing in dead cobras. There were less attacks. But then they started noticing it flipped. There were more and more cobra attacks, more and more villagers getting bitten. Turned out what was happening is that the villagers started operating these cobra farms. These massive cobra operations were happening where they would farm their own cobras, kill them, bring them for the bounty. They made an entire business around it. And then when the British monarchy realized this was happening, they closed off the bounty program. And all those farmers released the snakes, because what's the point? And then for the next decade or so, there was a massive, much bigger cobra problem in Delhi than there was before they introduced the bounty problem. What you described to me about the first home buyer grant and house pricing situation matches that one for one. Government steps in, spends a lot of money to fix something, the problem becomes way worse, and they waste all our money.
It's exactly what happens, and it's funny because people don't even realize that they're in the exact same position. Nothing changed. The houses, technically the price stayed exactly the same. All that happened is on paper the amount that you're paying increased.
And that caused inflation across the board. No one wants to talk about that, but the real inflationary pressure, most of Australia's economy is tied up in mining and development, housing. Yeah. That's where all the money is. Yeah. So if you increase the prices of houses across the board, that is inflation, man. Your dollar means less. If I can't buy a home, that's the only thing people are buying in Australia, the house prices going up is the inflation. And people don't realize that. They're also happy, oh, my house is worth more than when I bought it. Great, but so is every other one. Your house hasn't increased in value at all. Your dollar's just decreased. That's the only thing that's happened, is that your dollar's worth less. Yeah, you bought the house at 400 grand. Great. Yeah, you can sell it for 800. But you can't buy the same house again for 400,000. So you don't have more money. But if you've got a mortgage, I guarantee you're paying more now because your interest is proportional to the value of time. It's such a clever con job that they've worked into people's minds, because everyone thinks that they're getting wealthier because the house that they own is worth more. But everything else, what it costs to have end-of-life care in a nursing home, that's gone up. So most people would have their property, they'll sell it, and then they'll use that money to pay for end-of-life nursing care. They're not even able to afford that anymore because that's gone up. So you haven't actually got any more money when your house prices have gone up.
I think it's obvious as well, right? Because if you buy a house and it costs, let's say it costs, just for example, 100 grand, right? And then after the COVID stuff, and then everything starts going up by, I don't know, 100. Like some houses have gone up by like close to $200,000, but nothing's changed. All that's happened is everything has become more expensive. So you think, oh, well, I bought this for 100,000. Now it's worth 300,000. But when you sell it, you can't buy a better house. You just buy the same house somewhere else.
Exactly.
There's no benefit to
Exactly.
it.
We know who does benefit? All the people who make proportional revenue from the price of the sale. So anyone who has a 5% markup, 10% markup on the sale of a property, your realtors, your developers, your banks, all those incredibly dodgy industries that we know are dodgy. There was a Royal Commission very recently. We know they love what's happening. Banks are making record profits all the time. 1% of $100,000 compared to 1% of 600,000, there's a 6 times difference there. So if you're in the business of making marginal revenue from the total sale prices, you love to see the sale prices go up. That's why this is happening. And any government that we've had that says the way to fix this is to give people a $50,000 taxpayer grant is just trying to take your tax dollars and give it to those same people. That's all they're doing. Like, one thing I can't stand about Labour and some of these left-leaning policies is that they always have this bleeding heart altruism behind them. They always say, we're just trying to help, we're doing our best. And then they'll do something that's so evidently stupid and illogical that only costs money and makes the problem worse. Every single time. I can't remember in my lifetime where they actively tried to solve a problem and didn't make it worse. And learning about that New Delhi thing, it's like, wait, this has been a known phenomenon for like hundreds of years.
It's so obvious now when you look at the first home buyers grant, because exactly that Cobra scenario literally happened here during COVID. It literally did not benefit any average citizen. It just cost everyone more money. So you ended up having to take out a loan of greater capacity because all of the builders just upped their prices because they knew, well, they've got an extra 20 grand, so things just cost 20 grand extra now.
If they were going to buy it at 400,000, they're going to buy it at 425 now. And they knew that. Of course, I can't even blame them. Oh, that's just greed. No, it's not. That is literally just business. That is what it means to build and sell something.
Yep.
Like that's just the most obvious thing in the world to me. And how can you tell me then that, like, people who are 50, 60 years old, some of these politicians, who apparently have been around for so long, they had advisors, Louis. They had advisors tell them that this would work. How could they not see that? How are they doing it again? Kamala Harris just in America said that's her plan to make houses more affordable, is to give taxpayer incentives to people trying to buy houses. The exact same thing we just tried to do that didn't work here. She could have just looked at Australia and gone, okay, it didn't work over there, we won't do that here. But she's just announced that that's what they're going to do.
You know what would probably bring the house prices down is if they actively tried to get more young builders or more young tradies out there. So we had more builders to build more houses, so the supply went up, which means the cost would go down.
Problem is, right now, to tell the real truth, and this is really depressing about it, is that even if they were to build more of these houses, the problem we have right now is that they'll get bought up immediately by developers or by investors who will then sit on them because of the negative gearing that we have. You can have a tax write-off on the loss of property investment. So they can sit on that for as long as they want and slowly sell them so they don't dilute the market. And that's what's really brilliant about it, because if for example, we just double the supply of homes tomorrow, but we didn't double the amount of buyers, house prices drop. Because all of a sudden you have more supply than you have demand. But if all the supply is tied up in the pockets of investors who can slowly drip feed houses to market, they keep the selling price high always. It never drops. Because you think, wow, there's not that many houses for sale. But in Australia, there's so many empty homes. There's so many houses sitting with no occupants that if they just went to market immediately tomorrow, house prices drop by $200,000, $300,000 across the board. So all of a sudden you'll have more houses than buyers. It's a really clever strategy they have of like controlling the supply. Yeah, that's the problem we have.
You wouldn't want to sell either, because if you have those houses, even if they are vacant, the inherent byproduct of holding onto that house means that your equity is going up, which means you can borrow more money to buy more houses. Yeah. So you get this vicious cycle of people that have houses have the ability to buy more houses, which means they just buy the houses, which means the prices keep going up, which means they keep getting more and more equity to buy more houses. But that's just capitalism, though.
That is
isn't
just capitalism, but the problem is that there should be a few things that aren't tied strictly to ruthless capitalism, and I think housing should be something that we consider like that. But also, I'd say if we just did two things quickly, I think could fix a lot of problems. It would cause a lot of pain, and this is the real problem why no government would do it. The real fixes to the problems that we've built up is a bit of pain. It has to be, because we've made things too soft, too easy for too long. There needs to be a bit of pain. That's the only way to fix this. So a lot of people bought houses that they logically couldn't have actually afforded. A lot of people weren't even able to put the 20% deposits together. We had, after the Royal Commission and the housing crisis in 2009 in America, the mortgage collapses, a lot of laws were passed that meant that you couldn't sell someone a mortgage unless they could put together 20% of the deposit. So the reason that was done was to control the price of houses. You couldn't make the house $1 million because not many people could put together, $200,000 as a deposit. Great way to control the pricing of the market. People have to be able to save 20% to buy what you're selling. Brilliant. Great idea. Really genius solution to a really bad problem that we have. If I ask you right now, why'd that go so wrong in Australia? Why'd that stop working? I'd say roughly 10, 15 years ago. What did the banks do that was really clever to make people be able to sell more expensive houses again? Guarantor. They let people's parents go guarantors on their property so they could still buy things that they shouldn't be able to afford. And their house prices just went poof, gone. Because now you can be some kid on 60 grand a year. You can still buy yourself $1 million home as long as mum and dad put their house as a stake on it for you. That wasn't supposed to be able to happen. And that's what's gone so wrong. So the first thing you do, you stop that straight out the bat.
So you're saying that because you can have a guarantor now, it means that people that shouldn't be able to enter the property market are able to.
Correct. Yes. But what it really means is that you've increased the amount of demand. You've manufactured more demand, because demand isn't about who wants it. Demand's about who can afford it, who can buy it. That's what you should consider demand. It's not just wanting, it's being able to afford.
Right.
So if you increase the amount of people that can afford the $1 million property, you just made it $1.5 million property. That's the economics of it. By increasing how many people can buy it, same way the first home buyer grant fucked things up, is the same way this did as well. If you increase how many people can buy it for $1 million, well, there's more houses that are going to be $1 million. That's just the short thinking.
I didn't actually think about the guarantor side of things like that.
It was very genius. That was one of the smartest things the banks did, because that allowed the house price to stay high. And remember, these people make the incremental profit margins from the sale price of a property. And another really brilliant thing that's written to the guarantor procedure is that if you fuck up and you lose your job, or you get sick or injured, or whatever it is, and you can't keep paying off your house, the bank can foreclose on your parents' house. Even if your parents have the cash to pay off what you borrowed, the bank can go, I don't want the cash, I want the house. It's written in there, in the fine print of a guarantor process. The bank can choose to reject cash because it's the house that you got. So the banks have just got a full fail-safe. One, they can sell the house more expensive to teenagers and young kids who can't afford it. Two, if you fuck up and you can't keep paying that ridiculous mortgage rate, especially when they just increase your interest rate by 6-fold, they can take your parents' house. So the banks get to capture a whole generation worth of property back into the system again. Genius. I love as much as I hate them for it, fuck, to be sitting around that round table and think that up, brilliant. Great business.
That is actually insane when you think about that. Like, the system is pretty much geared to want you to fail, because then the banks don't really ever lose if something goes wrong.
Yeah,
they don't really lose.
Also, you think about banks. What do you mean by bank? If you're talking about the CEOs who are right now making a killing on bonuses and buybacks and stock purchases, like, these guys are living lavish, man. They're billionaires across the board, right? The Combank CEO just got a massive payout from dividends because they made like $8 billion profit, record profits at Combank. At the time of inflation, everyone's struggling. The banks are making the most amount of money ever. That guy's taken his bag. He's gone. Even if the whole Combank collapses and the company goes insolvent tomorrow, that CEO for the last 5 years, he's going to be sipping champagne on a yacht. He doesn't give a fuck. So like, the banks are being run terribly right now. They're all going to collapse. Everyone can see it. It's teetering on collapse. You can't have that much bad debt. You cannot have that much bad debt because it's a domino effect. How many of these Australian citizens can actually afford to pay off the $800,000 home they just bought? What if one economic recession happens? What then? What if just 5% of people lose their jobs? Let's say right now we've got like about 5% extreme insolvency risk right now. You can track how many people are behind on their mortgage repayments. How How many people are about to get foreclosed on? They call them foreclosure rates. I've been tracking them for a while now. Since interest rates have gone up, man, it's like tripled. We're one of the highest foreclosure risks than we've ever had in the last like 30 years. So like the banks don't care, because if the company Combank goes insolvent, the CEOs all took their back. They're all fine, man. They're out somewhere in the freaking in Venice on a yacht sipping champagne, probably at a P Diddy party. You know, they're doing fine, bro. So it's not the banks that are being run well. It's just the CEOs of these banks that are just taking their payday.
Yeah, I mean, but isn't that just the name of the game? Isn't that what they're doing? Like, what else are you supposed to do as a CEO if you're running a bank and you obviously want to try and optimize profits, right? It's like, can you even be mad about that?
That's the thing, I can't. And I said before, like, as much as I hate what's happening, and I hate, like, the pain it can cause to regular people, like, you think about it, if you were at that round table, wearing that suit, trying to put together a plan on how to make the most amount of money, you did a great job. You earned that business degree, son. Pat on the back, good job. Like, you can't be mad at them. The incentives were all wrong. We've geared the incentives wrong. We've made housing a profitable industry. We've made lending money a profitable industry. You know, in the Bible, and like they said that lending money with interest was a sin. Christians weren't allowed to do it back in the day, because I think they knew, they could see what that leads to, and that's what it's led to now. All the money just gets centralized to the banks. The more money in circulation, the more percentage cut you get, and the cycle keeps going.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's been recent talks as well about trying to, like, I've seen articles pop up here and there about removing negative gearing. Have you seen that kind of stuff?
I've seen that. I've seen it cost Bill Shorten the election against Scott Morrison in 2019, that election. I think they need to do it, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. I mean, that's just a real small piece. I think you cannot have your banks making record profits at a time when insolvency rates are as high as they are. That is just clearly something's gone wrong. If you have any sort of common sense of government, you look at it and go, all right, well, people are close to being foreclosed upon. It's going to create a massive domino effect, because there's two things that happen there, right? One is, who covers the $500,000 that you still owe the bank? What happens to that money? You can no longer repay it. Well, they'll be forced to sell your house to recoup their money. So let's say out of nowhere you start increasing the supply of housing by 3-4% Australia-wide, just for people who got foreclosed upon. What's it going to do to the prices of houses? It's going to make them drop. So the bank will sell your house but not be able to recoup all of its money across the board. And then you just get the same process will spiral out. So I'm saying
It's a bit of a drama.
that's what happened in 2009 in America as well. You know, the house that you bought for 1.2, 1.3 mil, like a few months later, it's worth like $500,000 because the whole system's collapsed.
Yeah, is that, like, could that happen here? Realistically, though, do you think it could happen again?
I've had people tell me that it can't, because the whole system is so built on housing that if this collapses, it's like the one pillar holding up our entire economy. They'll never let it collapse. But at the same time, I feel like people have told me that if you've just bought $1 million property, maybe you need to believe that. Maybe there's a bit of that too. There's a bit of like eyes wide shut type of thing where you just don't want to know.
It's funny because if you're trying to get into the property market, you want to get rid of negative gearing. If you're already in the property market, you want to keep negative gearing around.
For sure, especially like if you're a type of person whose whole retirement plan is based on selling some of these properties you've been holding on to. Because the thing with negative gearing is that you can rent out the property for less money than it's costing you to maintain and upkeep it, and have that as a tax loss. That's the main, like, you know, you have a tax write-off basically. So you got tax incentives to not only buy more properties that you can afford to, but then also like you don't have to rent it out as high because you can claim the loss. So my problem is, what happens to rents if they get rid of negative gearing? Is rent gonna skyrocket? Like, people have to start renting properties for the same amount it costs to pay off the mortgage. So I mean, when mortgages are 6 or 7%, does rent scale with that? We've got laws in place where you can't jack up the rent that much within one calendar year. So it's like you're gonna like really.
It's gonna be a chain effect, though, isn't it?
You're gonna force so many
thing,
people to sell immediately. They'll be like, we can't. We're losing bleeding money. Hold on to this property. But then, as we said before, if you increase the supply, house prices drop, and that's what they don't want.
Yeah, we're in a bit of a predicament here.
We're in a massive predicament.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's going to be interesting to see what the next 5 years are like, because I don't know what's going to happen. It's like I think that it's going to keep going up, but I just don't know.
I think it's a balloon. It's a balloon that's still inflating. So it's either like, does it just like gently deflate, or does it pop? That's it. It can't keep going up. Yeah, and the other thing as well, and we talked about before, you want to know about inflation, right? If all of Australia's money, or most of Australia's money, is tied into housing, right? So the amount of money in circulation in Australia, every time a new house gets sold for more than was before, you've increased the Australian dollar in circulation by that amount. So you've diluted the power of the dollar every time that happens, and it's happening across the board. So in this suburb alone, apparently all the housing costs, or the value of all the houses in your suburb have gone up. Let's say 100 million across the board. If you take a whole suburb here, that's 100 million Australian dollars just magically appeared. That's inflation. You've just decreased the value of your $1 by increasing how many dollars there are. So if you have $1 out of a total of $100, you have 1% of the cash in Australia. That's a lot of purchasing power for you. If there's now $1,000, you have 0.1%. Do you know what I mean? It's just the amount that your dollar's worth scales downwards the more dollars that there are. And that's happening across the board in every single place, every single home. There's billions of dollars if you think about Australia-wide, all the homes in Australia all going up by $150,000 each. You can do the math yourself. Do 20 million times 100,000 if you want to know just how many extra dollars we put into circulation.
Not to mention that wages haven't gone up.
Not the same rate at all. It's wild. Absolutely wild, man. It's criminal, and it's a shame as well. And I said before, I'm not mad at people who've just followed capitalistic principles and led to where they are. But what I'm mad about is that any attempt the government's made to try and fix this has just been clearly a fraud in my eyes. I don't think there's been any genuine attempt or honest attempt to fix this, because they won't honestly even accept what the problem is. And I think the problem is very easy. It's that it's an industry. It's a highly profitable industry, and they don't want to curtail it because their donors make money off it, and their donors give them money for their campaigns. That's very clear to anyone who sees. Like, if you want to see which party took money from the banks, guess it's every party, even the Greens. There's not many parties that didn't take massive donations from the banks. But the problem is don't then like take people's tax dollars and pump it back into the system and inflate the balloon more with it. That's what shits me. Like, give people more of their tax dollars back, they might be able to navigate their way through this with their own money. It's the same as the Cobra situation all over again. Yeah, and that's why I'm just massively low government. I'm a small government person now, and I never was before. I don't believe they can competently fix a single thing for you. I don't think they can. I think they can keep things running, but I don't think they can fix big problems. Not the government that we have right now. It's too bloated, it's too bureaucratic, and it's too corrupted.
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know, man. It's weird because it's almost like there's corruption all around us. You can kind of see it, but no one can really do anything about it because it's like, I don't know. You can sort of palm it off on something else. It's not corrupt because of me. It's corrupt because of blah blah blah, or like, it's COVID or something like that. I don't know. It's always just like they push blame around for stuff, but nothing ever really gets solved. And then, I don't know where I was going.
Well, there's a Jordan Peterson thing he says as well. Like, it's why socialism and communism in the past failed, and why it will fail every time. Wherever it's brought up or tried, it's going to fail. It's like guaranteed to fail because each human soul is corruptible. That's what socialism and communism never took that into account. Their whole principle was give people all the power, give a new government all the power, and we'll make everything right. There'll be no more problems. We'll get rid of all that corruption. We'll get rid of the monarchy. We'll get rid of the capitalist pigs. We'll make everything right. But as soon as you make a new government, a new centralized power, the exact same corruption goes through. Yeah. And I think, if anything, the current systems we have were designed by some really intelligent men back in the day. The way our democracy is supposed to work, the way these banking regulations were supposed to work, which is why the guarantor system pisses me off so much, because we had some people sit down and think about how to fix this, and they came up with a decent idea that would have probably worked. It definitely would have slowed down the house pricing increase if people can't afford to buy it. It would have slowed down the prices. But then you just get these corruptible people like work around it, navigate around it, and they keep making the problem worse. But I mean, we've got principles and pillars and rules and regulations that should work if implemented properly. So tearing it all down to trying to start it again, you actually make the corruption worse because then there's no railguards at all. That's what happened in Russia, China, all the places that tried communism and socialism. This is why it went to shit. It's because they threw everything out. They threw the baby out of the bathwater, which is what the saying is. So I don't know how you fix any of this right now, but what I do know is that you can't look for help to come from elsewhere. It's not going to come from your government. It's not because people are corruptible. As soon as you give someone power over you, authority over you, you leave yourself open to corruption influencing them and then acting against you. So we all need to fix our own problems. That's the best way to go. And so for me, you can fix the most amount of problems if you just stop taxing people so much. Give people the money to fix their own problems. Don't take their money and try to fix them as a government. It's the Cobra situation all over again. It just doesn't work. Because who are they to spend my money better than I can for my own interests?
Yeah, I think that's what's crazy is when you look at your tax bill at the end of the year, it's like I'm earning more money than I ever have, and my tax bill is getting fucking ridiculous.
It's
I'm like,
insane.
how can you justify taking this much money from me? What was the point in me going to school to earn more money for you just to tax 30% of it?
Yeah. More, 30, 40%.
Probably more than 30, yeah.
Because remember, you're not just paying tax on the money you earn, you're paying a tax whenever you buy something. To a company, before they pay you, pay a tax as well. So there's payroll tax, there's GST, there's all these other taxation systems that come into place. Then you're paying your council rates as well, wherever you live. It is insane how much of our money gets taken by this, like, insidious, I call it the leech. That's what it really is. It's like, it's 1,000, 1,000,000 leeches who are all just taking a little bit of blood from everyone. Just a little bit of blood. That's all that they're doing out there. They're just siphoning it. And the more lightly they can siphon it from you, the less you care what they do with the money in the end. Because it's not tangible. It's not visible to you anymore. You don't even know. People find out in July each year, find out how much they took from you in tax. And most people, sometimes you get mad. I definitely do. I'm like, what the fuck did you spend that on? But then when you hear, oh, they spent 200 million on this, 400 million on that, they gave money to Ukraine, they bought some submarines, this, and the other, and you're like, how much of that was needed? How much of that was wasted? How many of the things that you do, you're only doing to justify the money you took from me? That's what it is. I think taxation is theft. I'm going to start wearing that. I'm going to put that up here on the wall.
Oh, dude,
taxation is theft. I'm doing it.
Just right across there, right at the
Right.
top.
Taxation is theft right here, people.
Look, I just think that you shouldn't be allowed to tax me more than once on something. One time. You can tax me one time on something, but you can't fucking keep this loop going. Like, I don't have to pay, like, fucking, what is it? For your car, like you have to pay rego for your car, then you have to keep paying for like tax on fuel and shit like that.
Road maintenance is what they say. It comes from registration, but you're also paying that through other sort of rates and council rates and stuff like that as well. Not to mention they set up freaking speed cameras everywhere. God forbid you're going like 8 or 9 k's over. They're gonna siphon a bit more money off you.
Get you there. It's actually a joke how much you get taxed in Australia. Yeah. It's fucking diabolical.
And did you know that Trump has proposed making Elon Musk, if Trump wins the election, he's going to make Elon Musk the Department of Government Efficiency?
Yes, yeah.
Oh my
Dude,
lord. Could you imagine what he's going to... What will he unveil, man? Because in Argentina, the guy who won, Javier Milei, he's like cut 80% of public office roles. The government turned out its first surplus in like 30 years. They had the first quarter of no inflation on food prices. He's literally taken that country from the brink of a recession. All he did was go, why the fuck are tax dollars paying for so many of you right now?
Yeah.
Go actually generate value. And that's what I don't like about the current government that we have, is that the incentives are all wrong. They're all wrong in the public sector. They're all wrong because you're not trying to make profit. You're not trying to justify your salary by creating value, because you don't have to. In fact, it's the opposite. If you're too efficient, you do things too well in government, your budget gets reduced the next year. So you're incentivized to take all the time you can and all the money you can so that you can justify that your position should firstly still stay. So what if I hire you, I'm the government, right? I go, Louis, I want you to fix this problem. You go, okay, great, I'll give you 100 grand a year, fix this problem. Once it's fixed, good on you, on your way. Why would you ever fix that goddamn problem?
Yeah.
Why would you fix it? I'm giving you 100 grand a year to be fixing it, plural, fixing. Once you fix it, the money's gone. Your incentive is to keep that problem there as long as you can. In fact, your incentive is to say, oh, well, boss, I've done everything I can. It's just getting worse. What I really need is 200 grand a year. And I'll go, all right, Louis, it's 200 grand a year. Fix this problem now. I have an election coming up. Fix the problem. You go, all right, no worries. A few years later, it's gone worse. I don't know what it's got. 500,000. And that's what we have. We have that on like multiple millions of cuts happening at a time. It's death by a million cuts here. And that's why we keep getting taxed more and more. The amount of tax revenues actually increased because the average wage increased, and we did actually get a pay bump. Pays have gone up to scale with inflation to some extent across the board. So the government's gotten more money from the taxation. And when the price of something goes from $5 to $10, the amount of GST you're paying, which is 15%, that's also just increased. So the government's taking more and more money from all these things and not fixing a goddamn thing.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure the last I saw a block of home brand cheese was like $13, $14. I was like,
man.
my goodness.
Jesus
$14 for
Christ.
cheese, brother. That's why I'm making my own.
Ooh. Someone said the audio is a bit scratchy.
A bit scratchy?
I'll look at that after.
Yeah, I can't actually. Let me hear.
Hello, testing.
Oh, actually,
wow.
it is a bit
Yeah.
scratchy.
Is that the how's that, guys? That must have just started out of nowhere as well.
Yeah, that's strange. Has that fixed it, man? Thanks, Tim. By the way, I didn't even
appreciate
realize that it was scratchy. It must have been the gate limiter, trying to block out any ambient sound. Hold on, let me hear now.
Ah, there, that's clean.
Oh, dude, it's
Alright.
better. Fuck. I
Appreciate
don't
that,
know-
man. That would be
Thank you. I don't know
disaster.
how long that's been going on for, but
Yeah.
fuck, spewing. No, we'll see.
Yeah.
We might be able to fix that in post.
That's right, easy. She's saying
Um,
$13 for a block of cheese.
Yeah, $13 for cheese, brother.
Jesus Christ, man! Not only trying to make your own.
Yeah, I didn't end up making mozzarella yesterday.
Yeah.
I ended up making ricotta.
I
But
came around to this guy's place yesterday for a barbecue, and he's making his own goddamn cheese.
I was making cheese, brother. But listen, I will make the mozzarella. Okay, I think I'm gonna go back out and buy some more milk today and make some mozzarella.
What do you
I'm
call the
fucking
brand if you actually make this?
gutted. Mozzarella? I don't know. Do you know what's interesting?
You,
Is
you
that-
need branding. Branding's your problem. You make so much things. You just need some branding here.
dude. I reckon I could fucking start up my own.
How about Cheese Louise?
Nah, dude.
What the fuck? That's brilliant. Are you telling me Cheese Louise is not? If you're not doing it, I'll do it.
Do you
Let
know?
me take
I
your name and your
actually-
likeness.
I actually made.
Bro, that's actually gold. Just to tell you straight up, that's actually gold. You need to think about that. Because Louise is Louise Cheese, but you call it Cheese Louise. It's
I guess so, but it doesn't sound ethnic enough for me. I need
Fucking
more.
hell.
I need more ethnic
you can't just have someone doing the
like that. Yeah. But yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate you telling us that, Tim. Fuck. How long was that going the whole time like that? Jeez. Either way,
Yeah, hopefully not.
that's a bit weird that the gate limiter was doing that. But
Yeah.
yeah. So essentially, I made some mead the other day from honey, and I made like a little brand for that. Actually, I called it Curly Muse, because it's like
You gotta stop with these AI names now. I can start seeing them. I can see them from a distance.
It's Curly Muse mead.
Yeah.
I was like,
Not
and
too
it's
bad.
like, and it's got like a like kind of like a Greek goddess, and she's drinking the mead, and her hair's all curly, but it's like dripping honey
Yeah.
as well. I thought it was pretty vibey. But I don't know. I like making shit, but I don't know if there's that much money in making stuff like that.
Well, no. These taxes stay the way they are. Because then, if you do start selling anything, the amount of taxes you have to pay on a sale as well.
I think you can like claim back a shitload of tax though, right? If you know what's hard? It's hard to get your tax down if you work like an office job.
Yeah.
But if you're a tradie, it's so
Oh, it's
easy
so
to
easy,
fucking
yeah.
circumvent the system.
Well, the problem with a lot of that as well
Oh,
is
good
like
brother. Thank you, Tim.
when I tried to sell those Quidditch Pong sets, I still plan on going back into that. When I looked at like the amount that they're going to take just through like the taxes on the sale as well, well, for God's sakes, the amount of margin that they eat into. So if I buy the parts to make it, I pay taxes to buy the parts, and then if I sell it, I have to pay taxes on the sale as well. So what the hell? What sort of margin are you leaving with? If I'm only getting a 30-40% margin on the whole process in the first place, especially when I take my own time into account, and you're sapping me 5% either side as well, what are they incentivizing?
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, I can't even understand how Australia wants to promote. Like, I don't know if it's just us not being
Savvy enough.
savvy enough.
Yeah.
Like, it could be that we are just not good enough at making money.
There's
Like,
a bit of
like,
that
because
too.
it sounds like a lot of complaints from the two of us.
Well-
But is it just because we're not good enough to make money?
There is a bit of that as well. I mean, sure, it can be gamed, right? But at the same time, it's undeniable that us and probably most people listening and most people we know are being like, screwed no end on the taxes. You're being hit on so many fronts, man. Like, not even just you. You don't even realize just how many other things are a form of taxation as well that you're paying into right now.
Like, you know what is crazy to me? Stamp duty.
oh my god,
It's fucking
Oh,
insane,
right.
right?
Oh.
So here's the thing, right? If you buy a house, say me and you bought
Mm.
a house together, right? And you go, I don't want this house anymore. I'm gonna sell my portion to you. You have to fucking pay stamp duty
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Again,
like
well.
what the fuck?
Yeah. Same goes for cars or other purchases as well. But like the idea that your employer has to pay a payroll tax before they can even pay you, and then anytime you try to spend that money, you have to pay tax, and then you're also paying tax on what you've earned as well. It's ridiculous, man.
Yeah, I think income tax is the one that pisses me off the most, because I don't even understand that tax. What even is income tax really? Could you break it down what it is?
I can break down how they work it out, but I can't break down to the rationale or why they think it's needed. I don't think they can do that.
Well, give us what you can
For income tax.
Yeah.
So right now you depending on what bracket you're in, or you're paying a proportionate amount of tax for that bracket. So you get your first 18 grand free, I'm pretty sure, that you don't pay any tax if you're in that bracket. And then I think it's like 18 cents, 24 cents, and 33 cents. And then the upper bracket's like 130 grand plus. Then I think it's 45 cents to the dollar. So what they basically are saying is that if you earn up to this amount, we'll only take this much. That any other dollar you earn above that amount will take this much. What ends up happening is that any dollar you make from 130,000 upwards, the government's taking half, like 45 cents a dollar. That's why when I told you like last year, there was quite a good portion of last year where I was having half my money taxed. So that's basically income tax as a concept. But why they need it, why they do it, we talked about before as well. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
If you want to fix a lot of the problems that we have, I believe the best way to do it is just to have the government step the hell away. Step the hell off on a lot of these things, man. I don't think the interventions help. I think that they just want to justify their presence and justify why they took that money off you. That's why they keep getting involved in everything. Because how else do you justify the fact that you took that much money from people? And how else do you justify having thousands of people in certain departments? You know what I mean? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Each person needs to justify their role. No person wants to actually fix a problem because that's how they get paid. It's the Cobra thing all over again, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I need to I'm like perpetually stuck in between this. Like, obviously, I'm always trying to make more money doing stuff. So I'm like, sell the hoodies, I've got the coffee and stuff going. But it just, every time you try to make more money, it just seems like you get hit with more money gets taken from you. I'm just like, this is fucking nuts, man.
Yeah.
But there are ways, like, it seems the way to do it is that you
Sell
earn...
drugs?
Sell drugs, yeah. Dude, there's so much money in drugs. There is so much money in selling drugs. Some days... Man,
Why we were raised so right, that's the real problem.
I've been watching lately, chat, a whole bunch of videos on back when I was maybe like 15. It was like when Bitcoin had just got launched and stuff like that. And I sometimes like, why the fuck didn't my fucking ADHD brain fucking
just deep dive
into Bitcoin? Yeah. Why the fuck was I trying to get #1 rank in Gears of War online, which I got #4 in the world, actually, mind you. You can still look that up probably. But like, I could have spent all that time learning about like coding and Bitcoin and shit.
I was just chasing women as well. All that shit as well.
What a waste of time that was. You could have literally...
Did you do that meme as well? It was like when I was 3 years old playing with Legos instead of buying a house.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like that picture of the baby, and it's like me wasting
audio
time
thing has come back.
It's come back again? The fuck is going on? Still, right now? Hello. I don't know. Is it...
Yeah, you can't see it on there. I wonder why it's doing it.
It doesn't seem like there's any scratchiness happening.
Yeah.
Let me
Apologies, boys. We tried redoing the setup, so this... How's that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to sort that out though. In terms of scratchiness, but I think it did fix it before, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, who knows? There's so much trial and error with this as well. Like, I have like a good 30 minutes before pod, just trying to like figure out all the chords and the rest. Oh, there you go. Did you just try turning it off and on again? Hopefully that's done it.
Maybe.
Yeah, the IT crowd solution.
Yeah. What did you do? Turn on,
yeah.
turn off. No, I'm not actually sure. I'm not sure why it's doing it. I might have to go back to just using a straight input connect for the mic. Sorry, lads. I've got this. It's called like a Composer Pro XL.
Is that what that is? You tried?
Yeah. So it optimizes.
The audio was the one thing we had really good, Louis. Why did you change that?
Well, it literally just goes straight to there to here. But I put this in the middle because generally it's supposed to make you sound better. But all it's done is just fucking give me dramas. What a pain in the ass.
It's created like another 50 different fault lines.
I know,
that
seriously.
Could,
we need an audio guy. Hey, if there's anyone out there that's an audio guy, come fix our audio if you can. I've done as best as I can.
We'll pay you in cash so you don't have to pay any taxes on it.
Yeah. Don't put that public. We'll just like
That's fine.
we'll absolutely
nah.
pay the tax.
Yeah, we'll pay the tax.
But yeah, whereabouts are you from, Tim? Thanks for tuning in, dude. It's kind of cool. We've actually got more viewers on X than we do on any other stream.
Oh, lovely.
So
Brilliant.
that's pretty cool. X is we weren't even sure if we were going to stream on X, but it actually must be alright. So.
Well, I'm definitely a fan of X. X is probably the only place I go to now to actually check for news and on new events as well. I do not trust the rest after all the freaking COVID stuff.
Yeah, right.
WA as well. On you, man. Yeah. Look, normally
sound
Tim
like
will
it.
have the audio pretty well set. Louis
Yeah.
just complicated
I'm,
matters.
I'm trying to make things better, and I just
Yeah.
keep making things more worse.
Yeah, more work for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, you're from WA as well. So how did you even come across the stream on X? Did it just sort of like? It's so interesting. I have no idea how X works in terms.
Yeah, I've not seen too many streams on there myself.
No, I don't know if anyone's utilizing it, but kind of cool that it actually works. I didn't even fucking know that it would work. So that's cool. But yeah, I can't even remember what we're talking about. Yeah, just getting taxed and shit. So
Yeah.
annoying, man. I mean, I don't know. It's like you don't want to like sound like you're complaining too much, but then also, I just feel like if like I think I paid close to 40 grand in tax this year.
Yeah.
Which is just fucking insane.
I paid
40
50
grand,
I
man.
paid 53, 54, something like that.
Yeah, it's nuts.
But that's because when I was working away, I was doing those long hours as well. And
Yeah.
it was
Like
brutal.
working overtime.
Yeah,
and
working
you just get
overtime. I
taxed.
was doing 15-day swings. Each day is about 12 hours. So 15 12-hour days in a row. So you can imagine how absolutely wrecked you'd be after that. And then because I project manage as well, I was still charging hours to other jobs I was doing at the same time. So I was doing about 13, 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I was getting I think it was over half at some point being taken out. Some of that might be because I still have a portion of a hex debt as well. I don't know if that's the reason
so
behind
it's
it.
probably taken a fair chunk to get rid
That's
of the
why I
hex.
went over half at one point. And I did that video and the guy was like, "Oh, half? What's this guy on about?" I'm like, "No, if you still have a hex debt and you made as much as I did on that, they will take over half."
Yeah, they take so
Yeah.
much for...
Yeah.
my hex debt's gone now,
Lucky bastard.
but fuck me, man. That was diabolical to see how much. They were like, just...
Well, that was wild as
churn it.
well about that. The indexation that happened on that. Do you know last year?
Yeah, they upped the interest rate return,
Well,
right?
indexation is what they call it. So basically, they
Right.
index it to inflationary, means it's meant to be indexed to CPI, Consumer Price Index.
Sure.
But what happened was that because of all the COVID stuff and the inflation, it was a massive jump. It was going to go from no indexation during COVID because government did it as a measure to help people.
Yep.
It was going to go up by 7%. They're going to index hex, and most people still have about $40,000 of their hex left. So it's going to add about 4 or 5 grand on average, Louis, $4,000-5,000 on average to people's hex debt.
Yes.
So you had a lot of people petitioning the government not to do it or to reduce it or to do something, and the government didn't listen. And basically, I can't remember what the number was, but I think it was hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of extra hex debt just got generated through that. And dude, this is hex debt that wasn't there before. They just same as before when we talked about they just created this extra money out of nowhere. Who the hell am I paying that hex to?
Yeah.
Who gets that money? Is it going to the university? Who gets that?
What's the benefit?
Yeah. You just checking on the sound still?
Yeah, I think it sounds okay to me. Just let us know, Tim, if it gets any worse, mate. But yeah, no. I don't know.
Yeah, the indexation was just they generated $400. I think it was $400 million across Australia wide that extra hex debt got generated. That can't be right.
What? Yeah, where's
in
that
the
money going?
millions.
Where is the money going?
Yeah.
You know what would be nice is if you could see exactly where the money was being spent. There was a spreadsheet they had to release every year. This is where this money
Bro,
went.
they do.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. I go through that, man.
Where?
Yeah. I'm sure we get to bracket creep. Oh, mate, Tim, I'm already there. That freaking kills me. The bracket creep. The closer you get, the more they're taking. So, trying to actually make more money is freaking ridiculous. There's a ceiling that they're putting there.
So from my understanding, the way to circumvent this is to get a really good accountant and just fucking claim everything back in every spot, which is probably what we're not doing. We're probably not optimized. Yeah, we need to
I think so.
keep receipts and have a good accountant that can.
But it's a shame that's the sad thing. And you said before, if you want to see where the money's spent, I did a deep dive on this the other day as well. I was telling you something about it last time I was here. That the sort of stuff we pay for, the fact that the amount of money we give for pensioners payments went down.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Over the last 8 years, despite the fact that we have an aging population.
That's crazy.
Disability
Because we're not going to
disability
get paid
care
shit.
went up.
We're not going to get
Yeah.
anything.
every other facet of like public health payments from the government went down except for disability. Disability was the only thing that went up. It went up by about $11 billion over the last 10 years. But you can see where all that money is going. What I would love to know is like if you zoomed in, drilled in, go to one of the do Elon Musk in America, like Department of Government Efficiency. Let's say that to you. You go in. I reckon you'd see blatant people not solving problems so they can keep justifying a budget, blatantly.
Look, man, I know
some first-hand ones just from like private inside information I have from my career as well, which I can't share on stream, but I've seen it myself.
Yeah.
I've seen it where like they won't save the money. Because why would they? It's not their money. And that's the problem. It's not their money.
I don't think you can solve that issue though either. Like you'd have to have someone really like completely change the dynamic of how things work.
And it's one of those basic concepts I reckon as well. It's like if you have to generate the money through the value you've made. So it's like a slog. You know how hard that is. You know, trying to start a business, how hard it is to provide a product that people value that they'll pay for. When you've had to generate that money the right way, the non-fucking leech way, right? Because government money, tax money, leech money. There's nothing there except the fact that they have the military, they have the police, so they take bits of money off you. There's nothing that they generate you value. That's literally it's literally
it's the
organized crime.
It's like the bully.
Yeah, it's racketeering. It's racketeering on like a large scale. That's all that is, right? When you generate that money the right way, you value it because you know what it took to make it. You're less likely to piss it away. You're less likely to spend it on nonsense. Do you know what I mean? You had to earn it. It was earned money.
What do you think if say you didn't pay tax but you just lost all of your like benefits?
That's where.
What do you think about that?
So Tim's just said here for consulting, if you're not part of the solution, there's good money to be made in prolonging the problem. Dead on, and I think that's public. That's the public sector. I said to you before as well. Like if you fix the problem, you've just lost the opportunity to charge me to fix the problem.
It's interesting though, right? Because let's say you work in the public sector, right, and you do go solve the problem. Isn't there some sort of value to you by you've gone in there, you fixed the problem, you've made yourself valuable because they know you're a man that can deliver, or you know they're a person that can deliver? Is there not some value that you've made from that?
I think that if you have that attitude in most public sectors and you come in with that sort of frame of mind, I think you'll generate an animosity towards you from other people around. Because I think it's like a this is how we do things type of mentality.
There is definitely that. But what I'm saying though is that let's say they get an outside consultant, right? So it's not someone that actually works in a public sector. You pay for a consultant to come in and fix it. Do you think that outside consultants still won't fix the problem, or do you think they come in and fix it? Because then there's no value, right?
Well, I think outside consultant, you just touched on nail right on the head there. As an outside consultant, if it's the actual proper way that the free market is supposed to work, is if that you come in and you don't fix that problem, that you just lost your reputation.
Yeah, that's right.
Fixing.
That's right.
Right, and you haven't generated value. You might still get paid if you have a contract, and you can try and operate businesses like that if you really want to. You can try to be a dodgy private consultant as much as you want, but that reputation gets around pretty quick. So if you're not actually fixing problems and you're not generating value, very quickly you're gonna fall off the pecking list of who they want to use. But what the problem is, and this might even just be a fully subconscious thing, an aspect of the public sector that isn't intentional at all, but your incentive and your motives are wrong. And because you're not actually having to use money that you've earned, the money just almost appears out of nowhere. It's like a budget. It's been siphoned from many, many people. It's almost not real money. It's like they're playing for monopoly money almost, to some extent, because they didn't have to earn that money that they're then spending. And I think if you're working in the public sector and you have a deep appreciation for the fact that you're spending other people's money, and you take that seriously and you treat that as it should, which means we don't piss this away, we use this right, we try and make the best good for the most amount of people. If that's your ethos, no worries. Even then, I'd say I'd still rather have my money be spent by me as much as possible rather than some shadowy figure I never meet doing something I never agreed on, most of the time on something I didn't even get to vote on.
That's interesting that you say that, because if you had faith that they were spending it correctly, it wouldn't be so bad, would it?
Wouldn't be bad at all. I wouldn't mind. I don't mind the principle, which is take from those who have and then fix things for those who have not. That's good to some extent, you know. Just people who are disabled should be taken care of. I don't think they should just be left to their own devices. That's a cruel, callous society that I think sends us backwards. I don't want that. But what I don't also want is some shadowy figures doing that. I don't know why they spend what they spend. I don't know if it's all valid. I don't know if it's how much of that's them taking the piss. There's none of that. There's no transparency in any of it. But one that really gets me is in here in WA. We sent money to Ukraine when the war started. McGowan just made a decision to send $500,000 to Ukraine. Didn't vote on it. Didn't go through part. No, what the hell? How can you be in a position where someone can just go, all right, done? That wasn't his money. That was our money.
Yeah, but I think inherently,
You might agree with
what
it.
that's what the government's for, though, right? They're there to make decisions
But
as well.
yes, but at the same time, I don't think they have like the complete authority just to spend money the way they want independently, and that's really the problem. I know there's some guy had an idea, and I wonder what you think about this. The idea was that you have like let's say an app type system. Anytime there's a decision on what we spend money on, everyone gets to vote on the app, decision by decision, and then whoever the consensus is, that's what the government does. Complete representative democracy. You know, when they first wrote up the Constitution, all the rest of these things, and democracy, it wasn't possible. You used to have to freaking get on a horse and spend 6 days to cross the country. Right now we have the internet. Why are we not using that to make more direct representative democracy? The more space there is between you and the person making the decision on where to spend your money, the more pockets that have been lined along the way. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. The further removed the guy spending your money is from you, the more corruptible the process has gotten. That you can probably make a mathematical equation to show that. The less you know the politician, the more he's just wasted your money. That's probably a 1-for-1. If he's the guy who lives down the road and he's your local council member, he knows if I rip Louis off here, he can just knock on my door. He knows where I live. Guaranteed, there's more accountability.
There's lack of physical violence potential. That's literally it, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that it? It's like, you want to have the physical violence distance very, very close so that you know.
No, it's the fuck around to the find out coefficient.
Yeah.
That's what it is, all right?
Yeah, right, that's right, yeah. How much fuck around
out?
until I find out? Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so if you're like a federal elected politician who has constant security around you, right? You're never going to find out.
Never.
Your fuck around potential is unlimited.
Limitless. That's why it's funny because...
That's a great way to put it. That's exactly what it is.
Because, like, when you talk shit online, you know there's no repercussions, but most people won't talk that much shit in person.
They don't talk any. Like, it's completely civil when you're in person.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst things about the internet, I think. It's just giving people the most fuck aroundiest of vibes with very minimal finding out.
It's done both. It's the double-edged sword. It's given people the ability to out stuff anonymously, which is for the greater good, but it's also given people the ability to talk shit endlessly and not suffer any sort of repercussion for it. Yeah. Because if you go up to someone in the street and say some shit, you might get punched in the mouth.
Yeah,
which is I think it's a valid. I'm not condoning violence. I'm just saying. That happens. It just happens.
It's a great incentive to stay civil. Yeah, it really is. And I think that's just how it is. It's called boundaries. It's how you set your boundaries. It's like, you know, I don't want to do things to people that they don't want done to them because I'm worried that they might do things to me that I don't want done to me. That's actually a good thing. That's literally the give and the take. That's like the yin and yang of public behavior.
It is, yeah.
Right, but when you have these politicians now and the way it is, it's no accountability whatsoever. And Tim's just said they want to restrict gun ownership. And then they held an International Weapons Expo in Perth. Yeah.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Is that for real?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's all about taking the weapons away from the civilians as well. You know, they don't want private gun ownership. And you can say what you want about that. You can agree with it to some extent. But you'd be a bit naive not to realize why the powerful people want that. You'd be a bit naive because if you are powerful and rich enough to always have a security guard follow you around who is armed, do you think that person won't want everyone else to not be armed? The power imbalance there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Crazy. I always thought about that because I was always sort of like, man, I'm so glad Australia doesn't have guns because you look at America and you go, those guys don't know when someone's going to shoot some shit up. Yeah. And that's kind of scary to me. I don't know why you would want that. So I'm just going to fix where I'm sitting here.
Which I do get. I do get that.
I don't know why you'd want that. But then also, it's like... There's this sort of power that comes with owning a weapon. And I'm like, I don't know if I'd take having a weapon over not having a weapon, because it's like I prefer to feel like I don't have to worry about getting shot anywhere.
Well, here's the thing with that. I reckon the amount of that sort of sentiment that you have is completely dependent on where you are and what your life has been like, because no one wants to own a gun until they're in a situation where they really needed to have one, right? And that's what it's all about. I come from, like, I don't know how much you know about, like, the war over in Yugoslavia that happened, but basically in terms of civilian warfare, it happened overnight. It was, you start having people walking down your streets with guns with the only intent to massacre as many people as possible. You go through that and you see the value in you also being armed, 100%. As soon as you feel the power imbalance between armed authority against you, then you want to be armed yourself. And it only takes one event like a COVID to know when they're literally like, the police are all armed, right? The people who pay the police know that you aren't armed. There is a massive power imbalance there, and we are all just hoping that the people in power don't abuse it.
Yeah, do you know it was...
Hope is not a great strategy,
Bro,
man.
do you know when COVID happened and they had the army walking around patrolling the streets
Right?
with assault rifles? Dude, that
Madness.
was fucking
Yeah,
nuts.
what are you worried about? Like,
I couldn't
civilians with
believe
stones?
that.
You ready to call our guns?
That was crazy.
Yeah.
And like, if you went out for a run or you went down to the beach and
Yeah,
you were fishing on your own,
flying over you and
bro, there was
shit.
like cops coming up and being like, dude, you can't be out here fishing
Yeah.
on your own. It's like,
Yeah.
bro, this is
Yeah.
wild. Like that's the situations where I'm like, having a gun in that situation makes the dynamic change, because you have this authoritarian figure that can approach you and go, well, if he does something, I'm just going to fuck him up.
Yeah.
Where they don't have that sense of fear. So the way that they will treat you is very, almost with a sense of arrogance in some way. Whereas if you have to approach someone amicably, it's weird because they approach you, but there's a semi sort of tension because they're not sure if you've got a gun and if you're willing to use it. So it's not perfect. It doesn't mean that people treat each other nicely.
One of my favorite things I've seen of that, which is like there's a flag in America. It's quite big. It's basically the concept of it is like, don't tread on me. That's all that people want.
That's
right?
the snake, right?
Yeah, imagine you're just a snake going on your business, or you just don't want someone to step on you. Yeah. But if they do step on you, and they get bitten, well, whose fault was that?
Yeah.
There's an element of that to it, which is like, let me have my gun. You know, that's the venom, if you will. Then leave me the fuck alone. That's it. Don't tread on me. Don't encroach on me. Don't attack me. If you do, I will defend. That is the benefit to that. And anyone who thinks that that's like a archaic argument that has no place in civilized society anymore is just not paying attention, because this shit can go to hell so quickly, man.
Yeah, like
so
Australia's fucked. If they decided to if whoever the overarching government decided, you know what, it's martial law now.
Yeah.
What the fuck can you do here? You
Nothing.
can't do
There's literally
anything.
nothing.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
At least in America, they've got an ability to fight back. And Tim here...
Consider gun ownership or desire to as a lead indicator of the discontent of the population. Yes, that is a great way to put that as well, because
Very well said.
That's what COVID was. For me, COVID was like a massive push of my discontent for how I'm governed. I have a deep underlying resentment to every power structure that Western society has because of what happened during COVID. I saw them like literally storm into that. There was that business. I used to love going there. It was in Warwick as well. It was like a pizza place. They stormed in there. They had like 5 or 6 cop cars parked around. You know what the crime was? She didn't vaccinate her 16-year-old daughter who was working there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
6 cop cars, man. Do you know how much taxpayer dollars just wasted? They just intimidate and threaten that lady.
Do you know what's so strange though as well is that it's this weird thing that happens because the cops are just normal people, right? Yeah. We're just all normal people, but even if they disagreed, they still did it.
Yeah, they still went along.
But then they have to, right? Because that's your job.
No, I don't plan on that. That's a Nuremberg code all over again, right? I was just following orders. We already accepted as a people that that's not good enough. It's not good enough to just say you were just following orders. Like, you have your own morality, you have your own judgment. You can't let yourself get into that position. Doesn't matter what the fuck your job is. I understand you got bills to pay, I understand all the rest, but you must know it's wrong that you and 4 other squad cars are rocking up to this fucking pizza place, going there armed to the fucking teeth to intimidate this woman and her daughter for the simple thing of not taking a COVID vaccine that within like 6 months, the mandate was dropped anyway. So why the hell did you just do that?
Yeah.
Why'd you traumatize these people? I don't think there's any good excuse.
No, you're right. There isn't an excuse. But I don't know. It's just such a wild thing. Like I don't.
It was a crazy time.
It's hard to
man.
believe it even actually happened
Yeah.
when you
It feels
stop
like
and
it feels like a fever dream.
it feels
bro.
it does. It's like
really does.
I just like when you were talking about the guns thing, and I just remembered like holy fuck, there was armed
Yeah.
soldiers walking around with assault rifles.
Yeah.
And they were if you didn't have a mask on or something like that, they were like they would approach you.
Yeah.
You're just like, what the fuck is going on?
It's what really snapped me out of it is like I was naive as hell before COVID happened, and what I realized after COVID is that the more, and we said before, like the more removed that person is, the fuck around to find out ratio, if you will. Yeah, there's that when it comes to government spending, right? The less you know who that person is spending your money, the more likely they are to abuse it.
Yeah.
Same goes for your rights. Same goes for your safety. Same goes for your liberty. With the more power you've given away from yourself to these people, you're just praying that they're not going to abuse it. What type of strategy is that? What type of absolute strategy is that we have no recourse besides hoping to God they don't tread on us again? That makes me so anxious all the time because I don't trust them to act in our best interest at all. And I know after COVID, we have no recourse, man. We have no recourse. I was like days away from losing my job. I was going to have to leave the country. Like, do you know what I mean? That there was no recourse. You feel so powerless. And that's exactly how they wanted people.
Yeah, like, just reading the chat here.
The argument that was never made was mandate versus consent. Yeah, exactly. We never consented.
Well, they'll say that you did.
Yeah, I know that.
They'll say that
all the
you
wording
did.
changed.
Well, we didn't force you.
Yeah.
It was your choice. Was it though?
Yeah. I
Was
still
it
have that
really?
mentality that like I want to like keep pushing as much as I can because like you can easily go into like a pretty negative state of mind and despair about like what happened. But what we just talked about just then was pretty negative. You're right. There were soldiers walking down your road. And people did almost lose their job. People did get like abused and traumatized and violated. But so many people are awake now. So many people are awake. I don't want anyone to ever forget COVID. You said you almost forgot it. So many people have already tried to like memory pigeonhole that and like go back to wanting to believe that everything is what it seems. Because that's so much more comfortable, man. It's so much more safe and predictable to think that the government behaves the way it's supposed to. That they're doing the things they're supposed to do. We saw it. For one short period of time, you got to peel behind the curtain.
The veil was lifted.
The veil was
right?
lifted,
It
and
was
you're like,
completely
holy crap,
lifted.
these people are so corrupted, and they care so little for your health that they'll inject you with anything just to make money. Just to make money, let alone for any other reason, Louis. They just wanted to make money. The pharmaceutical companies just wanted profits. They paid out your government. They paid out your doctors. They paid out your ATAGI in Australia. Got paid out DOH probably as well. Like that's all that was. It's a big amount of tax dollars going towards the pharmaceutical industries. And they didn't give a shit what happened to you. And they would have used the police as like an arm of their agenda to like knock down your door, imprison you, threaten you, and potentially do violence against you if you didn't go along. That happened.
It's hard to not put the old tinfoil hat on and go, oh, the new world order, the world government. Like they managed to get every government in the world to do the same thing.
Lock, step, and key, man.
Fucking
It was
weird,
wild.
man.
It was
weird.
wild.
It was weird. And it's like, I don't know. I felt like when I was trying to tell people this is strange, I was met with such pushback.
You still will. You
Still now.
People have forgotten.
Pushback. Yeah, they think it was. It was normal. Like you know, we had to do it. We had to do it.
Everyone was just doing the best they could at the time. And some people just happened to make $60 billion worth of profit along the way.
Biggest wealth transfer in the history of humankind.
Purely accidental. It wasn't intentional, Louis. We were just doing the best that we could. You know, I actually had my doctor. I remember I told you I haven't gone to a doctor since that. To be honest, bro.
I honestly didn't go to doctors before that, but
I had the heart scarring from the second dose as well, and they're still trying to make me take the third one as well. And like the shit I was telling my doctor ended up being actually the guidance.
Did it actually scar your heart?
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
it did.
Yeah, it did. That's what those palpitations were. That's what the sharp pains were. Like it was textbook. Fuck. Yeah, it was textbook, bro. It was like right after the second one as well. And that's what it is. You get the scarring in your heart. So hopefully it's going to be fine. Probably not. Who knows?
How did you... Like, I thought you said you couldn't tell if you got a... like, you got scarring from it. I thought
there's no way to diagnose it post without, like, being dead. They actually take a tissue of... Like, they actually have to dissect your heart, basically, to be able to establish it for sure. But the symptoms and all the rest, what the, like, chest pains I was feeling after that is inflammation of the heart. It's scarring of the heart. So that's what myocarditis is. It's just the inflammation of the heart muscle and the scarring that you get from that.
Yeah, so, like, what is the repercussion of that then?
Who knows? It's almost certainly shaved off some years of life expectancy, I reckon. So as soon as you have the heart scarring, it's like there's so many other things that can go wrong. But I don't want to think about that necessarily too much. Because the idea for me is that there's a lot of people that's happened to. That's why you see a lot of footballers just fucking collapsing left, right, and centre. Tennis players.
Has there been any more data coming out about this to show a direct correlation or like clear evidence of what is actually happening after people have taken it?
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
Like recent? Like when was the most
it's still
recent?
happening.
When was the most recent report that
Recent
you read?
study?
Because I don't know, people. This is
Weeks ago.
we've rebooted as per se, but this is technically this would be episode 57.
This is why we started the whole podcast as well. This is my
Pretty
first
much.
episode on here as well, was during that time.
That's right. Yeah. So Darko was not a co-host originally. It was my Animals with Shoes On was just a podcast where I just invite people to come on and chat. And Darko is actually he's good. He's in a realm where he analyzes data and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to explain a bit more, perhaps.
Yeah, I can. I basically write scientific papers. Isn't like far off from what I do all the time. And when all of that was happening, I wanted to sort of see for myself. The first thing I wanted to look into was like, were any of the mandates actually evidence-based? Did they have any rationale, reasons behind them? And what I quickly established without much effort either, which was it was so easy to see. I can't believe that they didn't know that, most young people aged 18 to 40 who didn't have a pre-existing condition had absolutely almost negligible risk of anything negative happening from COVID. In fact, more than half were asymptomatic. So when they wanted to find out how quickly COVID was spreading at the time, right? This is the first early variants. They took random samples of young people. Did you ever have COVID? No, I don't think I ever did. More than half people who never thought they had COVID had the antibodies already. So they must have had it at some point, not even known. So over half of young people were asymptomatic. So if you ask me what the negative health effects of young people were, more than half of them didn't even know they had the fucking virus, firstly. And then you just gave them all 2 injections of experimental vaccine that was proven to be causing health effects to them. So I quickly could establish young, healthy, 18 or 40. I think the vaccine was about 2,000 times a health risk than COVID was. And that just blew my mind. And I was, I then went to try and publish that paper. I was giving that paper to everyone. The politicians who I knew from my campaigning days to, Department of Health to all across the board, man. I was just like, guys, you're making a big mistake mandating this. You're going to cause way more health effects for young people. And this was after I myself had an adverse reaction as well. So I saw it firsthand. I was very healthy. I was playing state football. I was jogging all the time. Took that second dose. Went for a jog a few days later. Bro, I thought I was having a heart attack. I almost called an ambulance.
Was it that bad?
It was that bad.
Crazy.
It was just like someone had like a pin and they were just stabbing the bottom of my heart with it. I was like, what the fuck is this? And luckily I had a friend who does like echocardiology and stuff like that. So I asked her, and that's how I found out what likely was. And as soon as I put on second dose, heart pain, and there were so many stories. So many stories. If you're young, if you're a male, if you're healthy and fit, it can cause heart scarring. I was like, son of a bitch. It was and pretty shortly after, they actually started advising. This was so well known that the Department of Health in Australia, WA, actually said, if you're a young man, 18 to 30, do not take the mRNA vaccines. So the one that they gave me 2 doses of, whilst it was still being mandated, shortly got banned from being able to get given to me.
Was that the Pfizer one?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So when I went to my doctor, I was like, look, I can see the ATAGI have posted draft recommendations saying if you had any chest pain, if you're male, if you had any chest pain from the first 2, don't get it as a third. They were about to drip that through federally to the Department of Health. So my doctor who was saying, no, you need to get it, was about to get advice from the federal government saying, don't give it to him. And I was showing her, I'm like, look, this is draft advice. It's going to get published in the next week or so. Give me the exemption. It's about to be like the actual, federal position.
Yeah.
She wouldn't do it. She wouldn't do it. And I was about to lose my job because the cutoff deadline was happening. Luckily, as soon as the deadline came, they dropped all the mandates.
Yeah.
So maddening times there.
Well, yeah.
Timmy said, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I went to a GP to discuss getting a jab. Didn't consent. Didn't get a jab. If they recognize consent, why not the government? This is the path around it. Yeah, I remember that. People were saying that you had to actually consent to it. They weren't allowed to give it to you if you said, I don't really want this. I'm being forced to. They wouldn't have given you the vaccine.
Who?
the actual person administering it. They're not allowed to legally give you the jab. If you don't consent.
You're not allowed to.
But coercion and consent is where it's like the lines
it was
really
it was coercion.
Yeah.
It was blatant coercion.
Yeah.
Mark McGowan, blatantly
Scumbag.
obvious. He's
Absolute
an absolute scum.
scumbag.
Like I said in the past, I thought he was doing a good job by like keeping stuff locked down until we sort of knew. And then the fact when he was trying to claim that they weren't mandatory and you didn't have to take them, blah blah blah. I was just like, man, you're actually a disingenuous dickhead. It's completely clear that you're coercing people into taking it under the guise of that they don't have to, but then they're going out and saying, yeah, we essentially separating people that were like, no, I don't want to take this, I don't know, and he was villainizing them. And then the
don't be a dropkick. What do you call it? He called something like that, didn't he?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. No, I thought that was absolute madness. And one thing that like really framed my mindset since COVID that hasn't actually changed after that, I looked around like, what governments, what type of person went all in on the absolute atrocity of what the government response was. So we know McGowan went fucking ham. He went to the wall on it. We know Jacinda Ardern went to the wall on it. Dan Andrews went to the wall on it. And you know what I found? Across the board, there was an ideological underpinning. If you were on the left, if you were part of, like, in Australia, it's Greens or Labour, or in America, if you were on the Democratic side, those were the leaders, the politicians, who just like went completely no individual rights. We all do as I say every single time. To the point where I realized there's actually like a philosophical underpinning here of like, if you have that mentality that your role as the government is to be that sort of, overarching parent of the people, you will do a dog shit response to COVID. And if you have the mindset of, look, we don't want to get involved in your life, people can sort themselves out, which is what the conservative position is, you had a good response to COVID. So Scott Morrison didn't want to mandate it federally. He said, no, I'm not going to mandate it. You look at what's his name in Florida, DeSantis. One of the probably best responses to COVID was in Florida in America. Least amount of lockdowns, no real mandates, no intrusive mandates at all on the vaccine. Why is it that across the board, conservatives didn't have the same response? No one wants to answer that for me. No one wants to look into that. How did the ideology go so wrong?
Of conservatism, do you mean?
No, of liberal ideology. How did that go so wrong that when it came to COVID, they're the ones who would have, like, they were freaking taking kids away from parents and stuff like that, man. They went crazy. They went dystopian as all hell.
Yeah, it's so funny because it seems like we're just teetering on the edge of something like, if it ever happens again, I don't know, man. I think a lot of people would just be like, nah, fuck off. But I don't know.
Well, I tell people, like, that's why I'm like, vote conservative. There's two reasons why. That taxation is theft is my first one. Like, vote for small government. People who don't want to take your money or want to give the money back to you. I know they might be doing on behalf of their billionaire friends who pay a lot more taxes than we do, but the ethos is correct. Stop taking people's money and stop blowing it with inefficient government programs. Straight out the bat, I think that's probably a good thing to say. The other one is respect people's individual rights. And if you have that, that can be a stalwart against what happened with COVID.
Yeah.
So with COVID, it was all about, like, your rights don't matter for the greater good. It's like, man, it was like, we're about to start freaking, what was the march that they do? We're about to start marching down the street. It's a Nazi march, goose step. We're about to start goose step marching as soon as they said for the greater good.
Oh, yeah, like the fucking communism.
Soviet flag just starts flying behind you, like...
Yeah, it's fucking
madness.
Wild. Yeah. Tim says, who's still wearing masks? Yeah,
bro, I still see them.
There was people, I not many, I don't see it often, but masks do fuck all anyways. They did fuck all from the get-go. There was so much, like, manipulation of what was true and not during that time. It's fucking crazy. And people just sort of plugged in and just believed. I'm like, my goodness, dude. Yeah. I think there's some things that I regret during that, and I wish I had done things differently, but it's like, fuck, it is what it is now. I can't
At least we're awake, bro.
Yeah, I tried to tell as many people as I could. I was like, this is wrong, there's something wrong here. And I've got the messages in the group chat. So I was like, I've got it all there. I fucking actively was like, something's wrong.
Bro, I wrote 3 fucking papers on this. I still have it. It's on my desktop. I'm like, oh yeah, I spent hours, man. It was like 30, 40 hours a piece of effort into these like scientifically researched papers, man.
Can people still get your papers? Where can they get them? You should put them up on
I'll still put them up there.
Put them up on X. I don't know if anyone would even want to see them.
They're also referenced and linked, so like all the rationale put together. If you ever have someone who's like, oh no, we did the right thing, you can show them this now because all the things I said bore true. They're more true now than they were before with more data coming out. Now you've got like actual proper publications are saying the same thing I said. But bastards, I said it when it was happening. They're saying it now 3 years later after they got their payday.
Legit. Tim says might give you a hint as to how they might vote. Yeah, if you've got a mask on for sure. But then in saying that, a lot of people got so frightened that they just didn't know what to believe. It's it's like
fear
and
is so
like,
powerful.
Yeah,
man.
you can manipulate everyone with fear, man. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It says a lot about the current state of affairs in Australia at the very least. Fuck.
The only thing I'll say with that, like, just to end up on that topic, is that, you know, we could spend a lot more time. The reason why I haven't brought it up, as you said before, like, are there more papers coming out and more this? Yeah, there are. Like, I still track them. All they're showing to me was that the trends I saw in 2022 are still correct.
Are the clots? Is it more clots happening?
More clots are happening.
dying?
More cancers are happening. Young people are getting cancer like crazy. We talked about that before, and people were really mad about it. I was
Oh
correct.
yeah, when you
I was
called it
correct.
when you called it a turbo cancer, people lose their fucking
Lose their mind. But no, there's a lot more young people.
It's what, like, is it called a pseudonym? Is that what you call it?
Yeah,
Like,
it's just the.
It's like a fast-acting aggressive
it's a fast-acting
cancer.
aggressive cancer.
But they got you on
They
the
hated the word
turbo,
turbo. It
and
wasn't
they were
even
like,
my word,
"Fucking
bro."
liar.
It's what's
So-
colloquially being called in, like, it's colloquialism. That's what it is.
That's it, colloquialism.
But yeah, they're freaking they absolutely chewed me up on that one, bro.
you have to do it. Was it fast-acting aggressive cancer?
Yeah.
It's almost fact. If
Yeah.
you could find it,
Yeah.
it'd almost be like fact. Fuck.
Yeah.
But no, I think you have to word it that way, because as soon as you say turbo cancer, people like fucking the agents turn on their minds and they're like,
Yeah.
get him.
Well, I think a lot of people
crazy.
don't want to believe it either. Timothy the Turtle.
Hey Tim, what's going on, mate? How are ya? Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, we get so many Tims. This is great.
I know, fucking everyone started tuning in now. Actually,
Yeah.
just as we're wrapping up. Actually, X is doing well. Like, there's
Yeah.
a fair few
Nice.
tuning in X. So I'll give you guys a flex. Actually, I haven't flexed on stream for ages. But the angles are not good anymore, dude. Hold on.
No, there's still there. It's just
Let's get jacked. Everyone,
got-
fucking go
you
lift
got,
some
you
weights.
got his
and shit.
angle.
Got the angle.
I will
but,
be going to gym after this.
yeah,
He's got
I
the
think,
tan. He's got the angle.
Yeah, dude, how tanned am I looking
Yeah.
right now? Coming back from Europe, dude, I'm bronzed the fuck up. I look like I'm part of the wood. It's crazy.
Yeah. Tim just said there's a WA government response to coercive control inquiry. Yeah, oh man.
Is there really?
Yeah, oh dude, they were like, my personal thoughts on like why Dan Andrews, Mark McGowan, Sinai Dern, all these people were resigning across the board is like the shit that they were doing was so unethical. They had no databases on what they were doing. None. They were shooting from the hip and they just
Fucking
must have
weird.
loved the power. But we'll just say, like, just to end on that one, there's a lot more dark and depressing shit you can go into on that front. And it's very easy to fall into this nihilism, which is like, you know, they did that to us. We're all going to pay for the health consequences for a long, long time, and nothing happened to them, and they can do it again if they wanted to. Like, you could think of it that way if you wanted, but I've got a much better take for you on this one. My take is that, like, me, you, this podcast, like, the fact that this all bore out of that, this ain't the only place this has happened. There is countless podcasts that popped up across the whole world in response to COVID. There's so many people who are awake, and you said before, like, you know, why all the cops go along with it? Well, not all the cops went along with it. All the good cops, all the cops of actual sense of justice and a sense of what's right and wrong, they got booted out the force.
Yeah.
They're now just as independent as me and you are.
Which is
All the
arguably
good
more
doctors, yeah, but all the good doctors, all the ones who didn't want to do that, are now kicked out. Everyone who was previously barely hanging on inside the system, unable to speak their minds and say the truth, is now out. They got shoved right out. There's so many better journalists today than there were before who got fired from MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. I listen to them on YouTube all the time. And there's like, they call it the Great Awakening, is what the colloquial term go for it. And I think COVID has just made that a thing.
It was almost like it was a necessary evil to sort of unplug people from
Yeah.
the matrix in a fucking to use.
Do you know how many people have just been waiting? It's a very male feeling where you're just waiting for like the dragon to show itself. Everyone's just waiting for that one real true fight of their lives, and we've got it now. This is it. It's why we keep talking about this shit. And you're like, why is Darko coming in and always talking about his depressing stuff? It's because I think that's the evil, and that's what we're up against. And you got to be able to at least like, you know, shine the light on it. The light's the best disinfectant for the propaganda.
Agreed. Yeah, that's and not to anyone tuning in for the first time here. This isn't what we always talk about. It's just we ended up on this one today.
We always seem to touch on it.
Yeah, like generally we talk about random shit like anime and fucking video games and stuff like that, and
UFOs
current
as well.
events, UFOs, mysterious shit. But it's just
Which will,
today
man.
we just ended up on that one. It's the first one back. It's kind of like a reboot series because everything has changed since the last time. You can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, X. Follow us on X. We're on Kick. We're on YouTube as well. And we are on Twitch.
Yep. Across the board, man. Across the board.
Yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in today. We're going to call it there. Yep. We're going to try and make it more regular, at least once a week. And the topic's going to change each week. We'll have different stuff.
I think it might be worth next one we touch on just to do a complete update on the UFO stuff. We haven't touched that stuff at all. I haven't even looked into what
the UFO stuff. Yeah, there's
let's look at an update on that.
Different. And then just like some chill stuff as well. We don't want to always talk about like fucking depressing conspiracy stuff.
Yeah, I want to keep it uplifted as well.
Like sometimes we talk a lot about philosophy as well. Actually,
that's
which
a big
is something
thing
that we have.
12 rules for life.
I need to actually put the Marcus Aurelius book up there.
We do the meditations.
Well. Yeah. What was that? I see an Arsenal banner on the top left.
Yeah.
Should have a football chat sometime. Yeah, for sure, actually.
For sure, man. Yeah, I'm very big on that.
Darko will have to lead the charge for that. Ironically, I've played football my entire life, and I never
watching it.
I never watch it. I never watch it, but I've played my whole fucking life.
Gotta pick a team at least, put on your side.
I know. I'll have to pick someone. I don't actually know. It's like it was just too early in the morning for me, and because I was up playing fucking Gears of War real late when I was a kid, I was like, I'd rather play video games.
Well, now it's like the late nights, basically. Like the games are 7 p.m. on Saturdays or 10 p.m.
Oh, really? Yeah, maybe we should do that. Where we have like, we should actually put one on and then watch it live with the viewers. That'd actually be pretty cool, hey?
Cool.
But yeah, thanks everybody. Hopefully, if you guys enjoyed, we got 12 on the X actually now.
This is growing, bro.
Yeah, I was surprised because we weren't even gonna put X on the stream thing, but we decided to chuck it on. But yeah, Timmy, thank you very much for tuning in, brother. It's been a long time since I've seen you. Shout outs to everyone on X. Tim, thank you very much.
Both
appreciate it. Get to Pixel Boys. What's that?
Is that a new stream?
Is that a new streaming thing? On today, get to Pixel Boys.
Or is that someone else's stream? We can have a look at it.
Is Pixel the event in Perth? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're new here, please follow us. Instagram, X,
across the board.
Yeah,
up there.
Twitch, YouTube. If you literally just type in animals with shoes on or A.W.S.O. Oh, Comic-Con. Is that in Perth today? I didn't even know that was on. Hey, yeah, maybe we should Perth Convention Center. Oh, Pixel. Nice. Is Pixel X? Fuck, there you go. I didn't even know it was on today. I haven't been for ages, man. I did used to go to them actually, but it's been a long time. But I guess you're a bit of a gamer or something like that as well, hey Tim? We'll chat about that more anyways. If you guys have any topics or something, just hit us up. But yeah, we'll probably be live. I don't know what day.
Next weekend, bro, Saturday?
Maybe Saturday. It's either Saturday or Sunday. I'm not sure.
We'll try to do a post, letting people know the time a couple days before.
Yeah, that's it. If you follow us on social media, to be honest, I don't actually... Considering how many people have tuned in X, I don't even use it. I'm going to have to start posting on X, I think.
I'm happy to start doing that as well. I've got the account
we'll sign in and start putting some updates and stuff to when we're going to go live. But yeah, Twitch, all that sort of stuff. But anyways, lads, thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Peace. We'll see you next week.
Easy.